the moon, and the hieroglyphic for the new moon, you can see that it's a star, and the full moon is an encycled star called Due. The lunar year could be approximately 364 days. Since it was shorter than the solar year, an intercalary month would be added to make up the missing days. The most vital element Luos took into consideration when documenting and ensuring continuity of their societal organization in terms of spirituality, culture, economic changes, and governance was time and its measurement. Among the general population, Luo people measured time in blocks of roughly 3 hours. Time was also measured in smaller, more defined units called onwo. So between 6 and 9 p.m. would be Odhiambo or Otieno, with Odhiambo being more towards 6 p.m. Odhiambo is evening. And then Otieno or Diewo would be between 9 to 12 midnight. 12 midnight to 3 a.m. would be War, Chindiewo, Where, each. That's in Dinka. Mondo, Kwapinyo Deko, Kodeko Chon would be between 3 and 6 a.m. Okinyi or Chon would be between 6 and 9 a.m. Nyango would be between 9 and 12 a.m. And between midday and 3 p.m. would be considered Odiocheng or Diecheng. Odiecheng would also be between 3 and 6 p.m. Again, 6 p.m. being Odhiambo, that's evening. Different types of calendars were in use at the same time in ancient Nile Valley. So there was the solar calendar, the lunar calendar, and the Sirius calendar. So we'll be looking into the different types of calendars in this video. Solar calendar. The ancestors made their first calendar by observing the rhythms and cycles resulting from the sun's relationship to the earth. These rhythms and cycles were documented, creating the solar calendar. The calendar comprised 12 months of 30 days each, 5 extra days called epagomenal days for a total of 365 days, 3 seasons of 120 days each. The 3 seasons were observed to cyclically recur, creating predictable phenomena. That's Kech, Pur, and Somo, conventionally known as Aket, Peret, and Shemu or Somo. So the seasons were recorded in a document called Tiro or Ratiro. In Luo, we know what Ratiro means. It's order. So for those interested in etymology, Sumo is a pirate for so many words, including the city of Kisumu. It's a place of gathering, a marketplace. Somo or Sumo, and Kusomba. In some places in Africa, markets are called a place of Kusomba. And also summer. The pirate of the word summer is Somo, and it comes from the Heliacal rising of Sirius, which was the new year and the beginning of the inundation of the Nile. So the hottest days of the summer were called the dog days, considered the beginning of the new year and the beginning of the flooding of the Nile. Astronomical solar cycle has an additional 6 hours. This means that the astronomical and the civil year drifted apart by approximately 1 day every 4 years. And you can see conventionally that has been turned into a leap year. So that's why there's 1 day added in February. There's controversy as to whether they added that in ancient Egypt or not. So first known calendar depicting circular discs, each sectioned into 24 parts, representing hours in a day, lunar circles, and sacred deities. So as you can see there, the top right circles refer to the 4 months of Kech. That's the inundation when there's floods from July to October. The left cycles are the seasons of Pur, November to February, and the bottom circles right refer to the seasons of Somo, or the harvest season, which is March to June. So as mentioned earlier, Kech implies drought or hunger, and those are the months that are included. Pur implies cultivation season and the 4 months. Somo or Shomo implies harvest, and there you have the 4 months. Each month had 3 10-day decans instead of the 7-day work week that we have now. The last 2 days acted as the current weekends, so the people had time off work. Time was also measured in smaller units of hours, as evidenced by instructions at the Osirian at Abydos. And you can see the care and the priest, the high priests, are the ones who kept time. Mentioned in the document is the 3rd hour, the 8th hour, and the hour of ceremony. The hieroglyphic representation would be that of a rabbit, which represents speed. Nu, which we discussed in our first video, kindly go back and watch that. And Due, the representation of new moon. And Nu, which is a representation of water. And the silent T, which represents femininity or multiplicity, the ability to multiply. So we see here the etymology of hour, which is conventionally referred to as Wenmut, is Onuo, Onuore, or Nuoyo, which basically means to repeat in Luo, or it repeats itself. That's why you see the rabbit as a symbol for speed. So it's time divided into smaller units. So some of our translations we had to do from a German book, and we see here Studendienst, meaning early services in the temple, Ort. So here's a poem dedicated to a priesthood, and it talks about hour of priesthood. You can pause it and just go through the poem. You get to see the reference to Onuo, Ort, Nature, and you can translate that to the best of your understanding. So the highlighted parts in the hieroglyphic talks about the early priesthood of the temple of God, and you can pause to read the rest of it. So here's a calendar where you see the different constellations. There's the Big Dipper, also known as Ursa Major, and to the right you see Orion, also known to the Luos as Sar or Osir. So Ursa Major, otherwise known to us as the Big Dipper or the Great Bear, was known to the ancient Egyptians as a foreleg or Mesketu. In most ceilings, humans and therianthropic figures representing the 30 days of the lunar month and 12 circles representing the months of the lunar year were often seen in the temple ceilings and water clocks. So the lunar calendar is based off of the circles of the moon, and the hieroglyphic for the new moon, you can see that it's a star, and the full moon is an encircled star called Due. The lunar year could be approximately 364 days. Since it was shorter than the solar year, An intercalary month would be added to make up the missing days. 1 month in the lunar calendar was 29 or 30 days, depending on the moon cycle. Intercalary months aligned festivals and agricultural activities and were adjusted 7 times in 19 years, or after every 235 lunar cycles. Lunar calendar was for important spiritual and agricultural festivals celebrated at specific times in the lunar month, and its cycles mimicked the rhythms observed in the natural world. For instance, in the ocean tides, more extreme tides are observed during the full moon. The different festivals celebrated using the lunar calendar were the Spring Festival, that was the start of the new year, celebrated in July. Reunification, celebrated in the month of October. Festival of the Valley, in honor of the afterlife, celebrated in the month of November. Festival of Beautification of the Ka and Continued Well-Being, celebrated in December. And Festival of Flooding, that is the rise of the Nile and harvest, celebrated in August. Check out part 2 for the continuation of Apollo's calendar or Sothic calendar.